They're gonna say, oh, how can you compare this to Genesis? Now, in a time when there's so many crossovers and SUVs, cars are always like this, if you're looking for a sedan, then we might have the one for you. Today, we have here the GAC Aion ES, and it's a full EV sedan and probably the cheapest AD car you can find on the market. So is this the car that you want? Let's find out. Now, if you're thinking about trading in your car to buy a car like this GAC Aion ES, try selling it with quotes instead.
Quotes helps you sell your car quickly and easily. With the new Quotes doorstep, get a professional inspection by our certified mechanics at your convenience, anywhere on the island. Quotes will then auction out your car online to its wide network of dealers to bid on your car. Once bidding is complete, Quotes will update you with their best offer price at no obligation. It's that easy.
To find out more, visit quotes.com.sg, that's quotz.com.sg. Now let's get back to this Aion ES. Now this is Aion's second entry into our market, and again this is the cheapest, so now currently at $138,000. But first of all, you're still going to get full LED treatment, so up here, and if you pay a little bit closer attention, you can actually see all these tiny little triangles that give it a nice amount of detail. And then these sharp angles flow really nicely to accentuate the corner of this car right here. It's almost like your T lights of some of your other cars. And then you get sharp lines coming down the hood. It almost reminds me of a widened version of the MG4. Right down here, you get a very large black splitter that gives it a little bit of sportier character. Now let's move on to the side. Now moving down the side of the car, you get 17-inch rims in this singular trim. These are going to be your factory grey, but it's a nice little powder coated, so it looks a little bit off from that grey color. You get nice silver trimmings right here that flow nicely to the length of this car. This comes in at 4.8 meters long, so it's slightly longer than your Honda City and your Toyota Corolla Altis, and it's almost going into Camry territory. Now, unfortunately, this is rather awkward for a car of this time in 2024. It is not keyless, so you're still going to have to use your key fob to unlock the car, and in terms of ADAS, you're not going to find much, so no blind spot monitor here, no 360 camera housing. Now, onto the rear. Now, over by the rear is where things start to get a little bit mixed bag for me, because check out these two lines for the rear taillights. I think this looks really good, and it almost even juts out of the boot a little bit. So it's almost like that kind of Genesis look, and they're gonna say, oh, how can you compare this to Genesis? But it looks like that. It looks good. It's really pleasing to the eye. A nice slope from the rear down here, but you're not gonna get a little boot button. So if you want to open up the boot, 453 liters worth of the boot space, it is electronically released from here or within the driver's control area. Open this up. In this segment, this price segment, typically you're looking at hatchbacks, you're looking at crossover SUVs, so they might not pass the anti-trolley length test, but for this long of a sedan, it is swallowing up the anti-trolley, no problem at all. Add to that your luggage, really plenty of deep boot space, and then underneath that, a whole spare tire. So this is pretty decent. But if you want to release the rear seats, you're not going to be able to do that from here. Now let's check out the rear.
The Aion ES is priced at $132,000. The single electric motor produces 134 brake horsepower and 225 Newton meters of torque. The single-speed automatic transmission brings the car from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 12.1 seconds. The 55.2 kilowatt-hour battery has a drive range of 364 kilometers. The car has an energy consumption of 6 kilometers per kilowatt-hour. For more details on the Aion ES or any other car, head on to Sgcarmart.com to help you make the smart choice on your next car.
Now over in the rear of the Aion ES, I am 1.75 meters tall. It sits on an almost 2.8 meters long wheelbase, so check out the amount of legroom that I have. Now you are sitting rather slightly taller because batteries are down below. So 1.75 meters tall, this is my headspace, but you can rest pretty comfortably. I would be okay sitting this for semi-long hauls. Now, if you're talking about amenities, you're gonna get dome lights up here. Very importantly, rear aircon. In this price segment, this is something that I really look forward to, especially in Singapore. And then you're gonna get 2 more USB-A chargers down here. So things are pretty useful and comfortable if you're in here for a few hours. Now, if there are 5 people and you're gonna move on over to the middle, you can do so really easily, because check out the amount of space right here. My feet can fit inside here, no problem at all. And because this is a flat floor, so it's really quite a wide amount of space, and I'm seated very comfortably. However, unfortunately, if it's only 4 of you guys, and if you move on over here, these are 40/60 rear folding seats without a middle armrest. So you're just gonna sit down with no armrest for your arm. Now let's check out the front. Now over by the front of the Aion ES, things are rather Spartan. You're gonna be faced with an analog instrument cluster, little LED screen in the middle, as well as a very Spartan infotainment system. You're gonna get Bluetooth music, you're gonna get a little bit of your vehicle settings like your drive modes and your regenerative braking that you can also set from other buttons, but that's about it. This does not come with wired or wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, so none of that. Now you move down here, you get regular 2 car aircon vents in the middle and another 2 by the side, but it's nicely housed in this gloss plastic material, so it does give it a little bit of character. You get dual zone aircon, so that's important in this segment. Dual zone for your front 2 passengers, and then of course add to that the rear blower that we experienced just now, and then a touchscreen setting for your aircon controls that corresponds with the settings up here. Now you move down here, a little cubby space, 12-volt charger, 2 USB-A, and a little bit of storage space right here. Furthermore, storage spaces here, an adjustable cup space with a divider, and then a nice little fly-by-wire gear shift right here, electronic parking brake with brake auto hold option, and a drive mode button here for your eco, normal, and sport drive modes. Open this up to a little bit of a cubby space that's not too deep but big enough to hold some of your trinkets. Now over by the right side of the driver's leg space, you do get a little bit more settings like a button for iPedal, toggling your traction control on and off, as well as opening the charge port and opening up the boot in the rear, which has to be either done here or on the key fob because there's no way to open up the boot from the outside. Now one other thing, both these front seats are leatherette and completely manual, so all your adjustments are going to have to be done cranking manually, but you're going to get a rear view mirror with automatic dimming, so that's a nice touch. Now does this car drive as well as it looks? One way to find out. So with all that being said, driving the GAC Aion ES, what does it feel like? Well, this car is back to basics, as you'd expect, because it's kind of lacking in so many things. It is really back to basics. It brings me back to the days of no beeps, no pulls on the steering wheel, because everything is just back to elementary. That's kind of the downside, right? For something that's at the bottom of the price range, you don't have any safety system of any kind. You don't have no cruise control, no blind spot monitor, no front collision. You do get a reverse camera, but kind of at the same time, do you really need that? Because currently I'm driving a 2017 car and that doesn't have a lot of these things as well. So I guess it's kind of, well, everybody is moving forward with inputting everything, just like even the latest Suzuki Swift that is a few, like the closest competitor in terms of AD cars to this car, that now comes with active cruise control and lane keeping assist for just a few $1,000s more. But this is pure, but it is also unapologetic in the sense that if you are going for this, this is what you get, because you can top up a slight little bit amount of money more, and then you can go for the Aion Y+, which has plenty of these features, including active cruise control, lane keeping assist, and many of the new ADAS systems. But immediately, get behind the wheel of this, and trust me, this is one of those cars. Get behind the wheel and you will learn that this car is just such a fantastic cruiser. It is deceptive in the sense that perhaps because of its price, because of its segment, I'm expecting something a lot less. But when you drive this right now, Cat A EV on the road, we are doing 90 on the highway, and it is just sublime. With the fan speed down, with no radio, I am not hearing a thing, not from the road, not from the cars, not from the trucks around me. And the way this thing cruises at some 4.8 meters length and 2.7 plus meters wheelbase, this is sublime. I think perhaps it's because we've kind of gotten used to not having any EV sedans in this segment, but this thing is just so pleasant to drive. On the highway, the first thing I did when I collected it from Aion at Linky and then I drove back to the office at Lorong Chuan, I was taken aback. It's just, especially when you're looking down at the analog instrument cluster, it's just something that you don't expect. And it is very, very pleasantly surprising. This drive is something that I could really get used to. It's making me it's making me forget about the analog instrument cluster. It's making me forget about not having any ADAS systems. It's just the drive that is so appealing. And then you remember that, hey, this is just currently 138,000 when everything else is at 150, 160. And it's making me, yeah, I get it. I want this. Another thing that surprises about this, I believe, because there's always this perception when you're pegging it to the price, especially probably for a new brand coming in, kind of feel like this thing is supposed to be a little jankier than it is. But then when you turn on the signal, and it's a very muted, very soft click, so it feels like it's giving you a lot more than it is. So it feels very pleasant. You feel like it's a little bit upmarket in that sense. At some 137 brake horsepower, this thing is not quick, but because of its high torquey EV numbers, it feels quick. And it has, for this segment, it has 3 drive modes, Eco, Normal, and Sport, as well as a few regenerative braking levels, 1, 2, 3, and iPedal. So you get a lot of customization. When I first picked this up, it was in normal drive and at level 3 regenerative braking. First thing I did was switch it over to Sport mode because it's an EV, I want an instant pull, and at the same time I can just modulate the drive with my foot. And then I turned down the regenerative braking to level 2, and that's when I found the sweet spot. This is the way to drive this car. Add that to the fact that the sedan form with its low center of gravity, with the batteries down below, this thing gives such a plush ride. I feel like this is a really good starter car because this car, trust me, this car is not fast with some 12 plus seconds on the Century Sprint, but it does feel fast off the line with its high torquiness. And even at 80, it feels, the pedal response is there when you're putting it into sport mode. So in a way, it's a great starter car because it isn't exactly fast, but it feels fast. It gives you that rewarding jaunt in your step. Another thing about this car is because of its simplicity and its affordability, I feel like these are 2 factors that make it very appealing for PHV drivers. But however, that being said, because of its 365 kilometers of range, I feel like it comes in just a hair under what you usually need. Because back then when I used to drive a taxi for the full day, you would typically clock somewhere between 400 and 450 kilometers of range. So if you are thinking about getting a car like this for your PHV usage, you might want to take that into consideration. That being said, this does come with 100 kilowatt DC fast charging, so 0 to 80 I believe is somewhere in about 30 minutes. With all that being said, is this Aion ES a will buy, won't buy, or go try? If you ask me, I feel like this car is a will buy. Now, it's a very conflicting kind of answer because this car is far from kind of complete. It's an analog cluster for an EV car. You don't get keyless, you don't get Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. You're using a Bluetooth infotainment system. And add that to the fact that some of these cars' settings, like your drive mode, can be accessed via this head unit. So I'm not sure about the viability of changing to a third-party one with Android Auto. But then again, back then when I was buying a bottom of the range car, it really was pretty much bad. Yeah, you didn't have keyless, you didn't have automatic lights, you didn't have automatic wipers, you didn't have LED lights, you didn't have you only had single zone aircon with no rear aircon. And those are all things that this Aion ES comes with. So while it is kind of bare, you get analog clusters, certain things are nicely done. You get a little bit of character up front, all this glossy material, you get 2-zone aircon, you get rear blowing aircon, you get electronic boot release, you get electronic parking brake, a nice gear shifter, 3 different drive modes with 4 levels of regenerative braking. So when it comes down to looking at bend for bend, dollar for dollar, a lot of these details matter, and in that sense, this Aion ES really does bring a lot to the table. And that's why for me, this car, after all that's said and done, this car still has to be a will buy. If you're looking at EVs, or rather if you're looking at just dollar for dollar, the next closest competitor would be the Suzuki Swift Sport that's newly just put out. That car still comes in at a hefty pinch above this car, and that's a subcompact hatchback. This is a compact sedan. And it's an EV. So that being said, of course, I believe it all ties into Aion and Vincar's strategy to push this thing into the market. But that being said, if that offer's on the table, then you'd be a fool not to take it. So that's why this car has to be a will buy. So that's it for our review of the Aion ES. What do you think? Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Let us know down in the comments below, as well as any other car that you'd like to see us try out. Do leave it in the comments and we'll get back to every single one of these. Now, if you've made it this far, don't forget to like, share and subscribe and hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any of our future uploads. Lastly, do follow us on TikTok for the fun stuff. We are at Sgcarmart. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye. Now, everybody always complains about crossovers and SUVs. There's way too many of them. So today, if you're looking for a sedan, then this GAC Aion is way too far, right? But I believe it's based off. Now over by the front of the Aion Y